Merhaba. That's the only thing I'm going to say in Turkish, okay? My Turkish skills are not nearly as fluent as your English skills, so you're going to have to help me out here. My name is Balli. I am the author of a novel called Inheritence, and a novel which will be released next month called Sugarbread. I wrote both of these novels when I started writing these novels rather, when I was in university, and I continued them in the years after that. And I'm going to talk to you guys a little bit about the commitment that it took to establish that journey as a young person and then continue with that beyond the structures that I was given in a university setting and beyond the support that I was provided with. Last month actually was a very exciting month for me. I signed a 2-book deal with HarperCollins in the UK and William Morris Publishers in the US for a novel that I have written and a novel that's yet to be written. And next week actually I'm meeting with a lot of television and film producers in London who are interested in perhaps adapting my novel into a TV series or a film. So that's quite exciting. It's exciting to see something that I've been working on and something that I've created turned into this, something much bigger and something quite visual. I'm also an English teacher in Istanbul. I've been an English teacher for the last 6 or 7 years, on and off with other pursuits in between. When I was writing this speech and when I was preparing to speak to you all today, I was struck by how easy it is to say such things. I'm a novelist. I'm traveling to London next week to meet with television producers. I live overseas. I live this exciting life, being abroad and teaching in an international school. But a lot of work has actually gone into being able to describe myself in those terms. And I think that's what we fail to realize when we meet people who have attained a certain success. We forget that lots of machinery has gone on in the last couple of years, or sometimes all their lives. Lots of obstacles have also been overcome. And I want to talk to you all a little bit about my path towards the success that I have now and also towards the success that I hope to continue attaining. Because I don't think that we ever stop learning. I don't think we ever sort of give up trying to achieve greater goals. Success, I think, is attributed to a number of factors. And I think conventionally we hear that success is the result of talent. We do hear that a lot. That person just had it in them, that they had creativity or they had some sort of aptitude for a particular form of art or a particular subject. We also hear about hard work contributing to success. Again, there's a conventional warning that we're given by our parents and our teachers. You can't just rely on talent. You also have to work hard. We're told that, we're advised that it takes a little bit of both. Sometimes success is also attributed to connections and resourcefulness. Okay, being able to kind of meet the people you need to meet to get to where you want to go. And these are undoubtedly important. All of these, perhaps in different portions, but they are very important. But we often overlook a very important component of success, and that is commitment. Okay, and as I call it, I like to kind of simplify it a little bit, the simple act of showing up. The simple act of being in a certain place, doing a certain thing, every day, consistently. I think that's something that we don't think about very much when we think about success for some reason. We don't think about the day-to-day little work that is done that builds up to that bigger piece of work or that bigger success. Okay, but commitment, to me, sets apart the person who says, I've done this, I've written a novel, I've taught English in a foreign country, I've won an award, or whatever it is, from the person who says, I'd like to do those things one day. Okay, it's the commitment that really sets those two people apart. In my case, it was very important to commit in 3 different ways. The first way, and as young people, maybe you'll identify with this, the first commitment that I had to make was disappointing my parents because I wanted to be a writer. And so telling them that was something I wanted to do. I had these lofty aspirations to do something creative with my life. And to them, that was their worst nightmare. Their daughter wanted to be an artist. I had to be sure I really wanted to do this in order to fight for it. And as you fight for something, you become sort of more and more convinced in your ability to do it, or your need to do it. There were months and months, or I should say years actually, of battle. There was months of them saying no, and me saying, no, I'm never going to become an engineer or a lawyer. This is something that I want to do. I've read studies recently that show that if a person says that they are something, they're more likely to commit to doing that, which I think is really interesting. So people, for example, who want to lose weight are more likely to lose weight if they say things like, you know what, I'm not someone who eats junk food. I am not that kind of person. And I think that's really important. I think that when I started fighting for fighting with my parents for the freedom to go out and become a writer, I think I did start to tell myself, I'm going to be a writer rather than I want to be a writer. And I think that little shift in language created a sense of commitment in me that was very hard to back out of later. There's also a commitment to learning. And if you want to do something, you have to be a lifelong student of that thing. You have to realize that you will keep on learning about that thing, and you will enjoy it, but there are also aspects of it that you'll really not like. There'll be technical aspects of anything that you might not enjoy very much. But if you love that subject, if you love that particular pursuit or that particular hobby, whatever it is, you will commit to learning. You will commit to having times of failure as well. You'll commit to making mistakes. I studied literature and creative writing in a bachelor's program at university in America. I attended creative writing workshops. I did a lot of undergraduate work in creative writing. I'm not saying that you need to do that if you want to be a writer. I think the most important thing is, again, and I'll explain later, showing up. The important thing also is reading. The important thing is, writing, doing that daily practice. But for me, it provided a sense of structure and a sense of consistency that kind of set me up for the rest of my life. Now, years later, I still read with that same sort of student perspective, that same mindset of a student who's learning more about writing. I spent, back then, and I still spend countless hours observing, writing, revising. Okay? If you want to do something, you want to pursue something, know that it is a lifelong commitment if you're passionate about it. The third thing, and I guess this is the most relevant to me now, is committing to the project, committing to whatever it is that you want to do, and the actual project that proves that you are that thing. Many incredible novels, screenplays, artworks don't exist because the artist hit an obstacle and decided to give up. And I think the theme that we have today is very apt for that sense of a knot, because that's exactly what comes to mind when I'm stuck on something, when I've started writing a story and it's really fun, and then somewhere I hit a point where I think, well, that doesn't work. That doesn't make any sense. It actually feels physically like a knot. It feels like a knot in my stomach, or it feels like I'm walking and I've suddenly tripped on this huge knot, okay, and I can't untangle it, I can't get past it. You've all been there, I'm sure. As students, you've probably written an essay or a story, or if you've drawn a portrait or something that has some promise at the beginning. Okay, it's exciting at the beginning. Gradually it becomes more difficult. And partly the excitement fades because it's not new anymore. Right? The newness of things is always very exciting. But partly also because you now have to follow up on all those details that you established earlier. For example, if it's a portrait of a person and you know that you're not very good at drawing noses, for example, and you're drawing every bit of that person's face. You've drawn all their features, and you get to the part where you have to draw their nose, and you just can't get the angle right, you can't get the shadow right. It's just not going very well. That's your knot. And that's the point at which you either put down the pencil and say, all right, well, I'm not going to do this anymore, it's too hard, or you learn how to draw noses. If it's a story with a character who suspects his father of being a spy in the first chapter, then you have to follow this thread. You've established this thread. You've made a promise to the reader. Either you confirm the character's suspicions to the reader, or you reveal that the father is not a spy, but provide a reasonable explanation for all those suspicions. Either way, you make a promise to the reader. You make a promise to yourself and also to the person receiving your work. And you need to follow through on that. And I think often that knot is a point at which we realize that we've made a promise that we can't keep. I think that doubt, hitting that knot, is a very powerful thing, and it can convince us that what we're doing is not worthy. Doubt is particularly destructive in creative fields. And I think that's because in a creative field, you're often working on your own. You're often working in isolation. You're very solitary. You're not getting a whole lot of feedback. You're also unpaid or underpaid, and you're greatly underappreciated. You're going against the norms of society. You're quite a minority in society as an artist or a writer. You're also going against the advice of your parents, who still hope that one day you'll become an engineer or a lawyer. And doubt in that way can really destroy your passion, can really destroy your desire to follow through. Doubt about a small detail or an obstacle to continuing often causes writers and artists to quit. In a world where trying to write or draw is seen by many as a fanciful waste of time, it's very easy to listen to doubt. It's very easy to say, oh well, I'm not doing anything practical or worthwhile anyway. Writing is childish. Drawing is childish. Painting is just, it's just silly and fanciful. And the world of practicality is very tempting. It welcomes us with open arms, right? Steady paycheck, security, approval from everyone around us. But if you're passionate, and especially passionate about something that isn't approved of, as a vocation or as an educational pursuit, there are a couple of things you have to do, and I think they all relate back to commitment. You have to show up. And I think that's what sets apart. The showing up is a little bit different from that idea that hard work is a contributor to success. Showing up is about consistent, committed work. It's about doing a little bit every day. It was Woody Allen, I think, who said that 80% of success is showing up. 20% might be talent, connections, resourcefulness, whatever it is. But think about it, 80%, that's a huge portion of a product that is successful. It's also really important to show up when you least want to show up. And I think you guys may be familiar with that, on a day when you really don't want to go to school, or a day when you really don't want to revise for an exam, or you really don't want to exercise. It's often very easy on those days, very tempting to say, I'm not going to do this today, I'm not going to do this ever again. I'm just not that kind of person. I'm not a person who exercises. I'm not a person who revises. I'm not a person who does these things. I have limits. It's really, really important to show up just a little bit on those days, to tell ourselves, well, why don't I give myself 5 minutes? And if I really hate it after 5 minutes, then I can stop. But at least I've shown up that day. Accept also that not all problems can be fixed right now. Writing a novel, drawing a picture, whatever it is, committing to any sort of long-term project requires patience. It requires infinite patience. And that's especially challenging for me because when I die, on my tombstone, it will not say that I was a patient person. I am not very patient. Writing has taught me to be very, very patient and to accept that maybe tomorrow the solution will come to me. Maybe next year the solution will come to me, but it's not going to happen right now. With the novel that I've just signed a book deal for, there was a mystery plot in it. And I've never written anything with a mystery in it before. I really, really struggled to establish the mystery, to convincingly kind of thread it through the novel, and then also to follow through and to have the mystery be revealed at the end of the novel. Everything I tried to do just didn't make sense. It wasn't going very well. And I set aside 6 months to myself to work on it. I didn't work. I didn't go to my job. I just spent 6 months working on this mystery. I got a little bit further, maybe, than I would have if I had other commitments. But then about a year later, I was walking down the street, and it suddenly hit me. It just made sense. Oh, this is what will happen, and everything fell into place. Sometimes you can't push these things. You can't force them. Just know that a solution will arrive. And don't try to give yourself a time limit for it. Have a vision for what you want. And that's not necessarily knowing the ending of your story or knowing exactly what your painting will look like. Or it's about knowing what your goal is. Do you want a novel worthy of publication? Do you want a realistic portrait of a person? Having a vision is a form of committing because it gives you a finishing line. It gives you a sense of what you're working towards. There's a couple of things you can do. If you're having trouble convincing your parents or your teachers or your friends or society to let you reject a more practical pursuit and let you pursue something that's more creative and a bit more out there, you can rest assured that studies show that people who do what they love are happier. Okay, that's not just some romantic notion that you do what you love, you'll just be happier in life. It's actually proven. If that isn't enough to convince people, though, studies also show that people who do what they love earn more money than if they were doing a job they were forced to do, even if that job presumably pays more money. And the reason is because in the job that they love to do, even though it's not a very high-paying job, they would strive towards greater challenges in that job. And therefore, they would get more promotions and be valued more for their work because they're enjoying it and they're getting better at it. Whereas if you're doing a job just for the sake of pleasing people, you're not going to value that work very much. You're not going to be very enthusiastic about that work, and you probably always stay at that same level of achievement that you started with. Okay, so it's not only not fulfilling, but it's also not very financially rewarding if you have to make that practical argument. Commit to learning more about whatever it is you want to do. As I mentioned before, it's a lifelong commitment. Know that this is a lifelong commitment, and that's always going to be a part of your day-to-day life. Start showing up. Like I said before, every day do a little bit of that thing you love. Make a habit of it. Treat it like a job that you really, really love. Tell yourself and tell others, I am this person. This is something that I do. There is a misconception, particularly in the arts, that art is not hard work, that inspiration just arrives, and the artist or the writer is just swept up in the spirit of creativity. Any successful writer or artist or filmmaker will tell you that this is not true. It's all about the work. Don't let anyone fool you into thinking it's about looking a certain way or talking a certain way or going to certain cafes or wearing black turtlenecks or whatever it is that writers wear nowadays. It's unglamorous, actually. Writing is very unglamorous. It's very solitary, like I said before, and it's simple. It's just daily work. And my last tip is to enjoy the journey, to enjoy that daily work, enjoy that daily commitment. Don't tell yourself, when I publish this novel, when I get to this place, that is when I will have attained success. Because once you get there, you're going to then strive to achieve other goals. You're going to say, well, here's the next milestone. And it really is about that fog of day-to-day work and that fog of little victories that you have throughout the journey. Thank you very much.